Hi guys,
Sup?
I'm Ace,
I'm the other one.
and today is another Drawcast. We're going to be going over a collaboration sort of piece.
Yeah, that's a decent enough word for it. I've been talking with this comedian named Thomas Nichols, tag TN Comedy, for a little while now. We've had a few different conversations. He is a pretty cool dude. He runs a nice little Twitch and Discord server. He's a horror fan. He does a stand-up, but he also works with other really cool artists to make some comics. He's had a horror comic come out, as well as a more silly comic called Just Us Cops, which was basically like police trying to police a cartoon world. So it was like Roger Rabbit and goofy characters, going out causing mischief. So
That actually does sound like fun.
yeah, no, it was very much it was very classic cartoon cops in the way of like, I didn't read like all of them or anything, but from what I saw, they were like comparable to the cops from Gravity Falls, the goofy cops from Simpsons.
So like the sitcom bumbling
yeah,
cop
so
trope.
yeah, so he's a cool guy, very creative, and I'm hoping to do some work with him in the future. So this is kind of a proof of concept that I was like, hey, let me show you some stuff we can do. So that's what this is, and so he's theoretically posting it on his channel, and we're gonna do some behind the scenes, how we made it, and if any of you want to make specifically a YouTube less than a minute animated short based off of a cartoon audio or stand up or a podcast, this can maybe be a reference for you.
Anyway, let's start with the time lapse in 3, 2, 1.
So step one to these, I would say, is, and this kind of depends, if you're doing something based off of pre-existing like animation or show, you have character models already there. You have to choose, are you gonna do the same style or not. For this, obviously, I have to characterize a real person, and as well as choose what kind of animation styles it's going to be, because you don't want your shots to go from chibi to anime or whatever. So I was trying to do, a very comfortable style for me, and a real show would be like proper turnarounds and stuff, but this was more like proofing the shots, I was thinking.
Can we go back for a step back and ask, did he send you the audio clip from the comic?
So I asked him, and this is kind of my thing. I've tried to talk with a few different personalities and creators.
I'll be honest with y'all, man. Guns or titties, I react exactly the same. I react exactly the same. I freeze, I stare, and then ask if I can hold it. That's exactly the same.
No, so I kind of initiated this conversation. So I asked him, "Hey, what do you have that is like doing well? Like, what do you think?" Because that's the thing, if you're trying to make something do well, you're not gonna take the underseen media. Probably you're gonna try to piggyback off of what's doing well. So I asked him what he liked, and so he sent me a YouTube link to a 5 or 6 minute session of his stand up. And I took my favorite like 30-40 seconds out of it.
Okay.
Yeah,
because it's a good 30-40 seconds.
It is. I mean, a lot of his stand up was good, and that's kind of one of the things, depending on what you're doing, is like, one, if I did, because I could have done a 3-minute take, I could have animated the whole video. This part of the goal here was a fast turnaround, because as a professional animator trying to showcase skills, you don't want to say, hey, I'll do this little project, and then that little project takes you 5 months. So yeah, and as you saw, I wanted to get a rough draft as soon as possible, so I'd already thumbnailed out the shots, but then I'm like, okay, let's cut them together, which for just the 2 shots isn't as big of a deal as if it was 5, 6 plus shots, but and when you're doing any art, you want to think about what's the medium, what's the point, what are the advantages, what are the things you have to consider, and animation is the most, next to music, most time-based medium. So
right.
You really need to make sure that, does this really need another shot in there? Does this hold this shot for too long? Et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things that I do want to mention is that I do action stuff. I like acting.
Mhm.
And you can see, even as I'm lip syncing, I try to make like these poses that really kind of work and do some fun stuff there. But if you're doing a talking shot, you need to make the character talk. You need to think about your facial expressions, have your lip syncing.
Body language.
Well, so that's the thing. That's the
Yeah.
thing I like. I like body language, going from pose to pose. The harder part
Mhm.
is these subtle facial shifts. At least for me, that's because it's not what I enjoy to do. It's a little bit more meticulous. I tried to streamline it as much as I can by using layers. So I did hand draw on traditional animation as a sketch, and then try to use different layers and puppetry to kind of make it easier, which it does, and it looks consistent. You don't have too much size manipulation going on, and I didn't have to like redraw the same face 1,000 times.
Right.
However, it definitely did lose some of its expressiveness going from my sketch to my quote unquote cleanup, because it's just not as it's not as fluid. It's not it doesn't have that same charm.
Yeah. But I think the way that you animate the movements, the hand movements, and just the body language, I think it more than makes up for it.
Yeah.
Because the way that you animate just action, it works really well for you.
Well, and that's why like I really wanted to find things like when he does like exactly the same and kind of like does that handout thing. There's a really easy place there to just tween that. Here I went ahead. So another thing you have to consider is like, how do you add to a joke? Because obviously podcast stand up, you just have the talking portion. Trying to add visuals to it, you don't want to make it just lip sync, because at that point, just go watch the stand up. You don't want it to be describing and then it happens exactly. You want to find things to add to it. And I thought, okay, this guy's a comic artist. He has an anime. He does some anime stuff. So I'm like, he's talking about guns and boobs. So at first I was going to do like a very Looney Tunes style, like puff cloud to kind of go from gun to boob. But I was like, what if they get mashed? So the idea of a character with big gun point at, pan to reveal quote unquote sexy girl, that I felt like was an organic way. Because that's the other thing. Like when you're trying to add these visual gags, they take time.
Right.
So where I was going to have poof, 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 I'm like, okay, you need like 3 seconds to see this, 3 seconds to see that.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's just combining them, it was a lot easier. And this was another thing, though. I had so much more animation of her, but this was like kind of the last part I was animating. And I'm like, I don't want to animate her bringing the gun up, coming all the way down. Like, I didn't want to do all those poses.
I really like how you simplified the gun shapes. For
especially the front. That's the thing. Like rifles and guns. We're gonna come drawing gun tutorial. Is so simple. Actually, it's 2 box and whatever is like important for the design of that gun. The end of a rifle is a tube and some kind of muzzle flash. I don't know gun terminology, but it's just that it is simple.
Yeah.
The back of the gun is where there's some crazy stuff, but if you trace it, which as you saw, I traced and manipulated to try to not be completely plagiaristic, but those shapes are really simple. They're designed for animation. There's ways to simplify.
And then on the other hand, doing that weird, I don't say like censorship, but the way that you drew a water gun and then the water balloons.
Yeah, but yeah, the fun thing.
They were a nice touch.
Again, consider your mediums. Film animation has to be shown somewhere. In the old days, it was the movie theaters, and there were sensibilities that different theater owners dealt with. Now it's YouTube, and there's censorship laws and stuff there. And it's interesting, but those are both gags I've seen from other places. I can't remember where I've seen like the water gun thing before, but I know Mikey Mega, he's a saucy artist, and he draws tutorials on YouTube, and that's a trick he's used before. It's just very much show that instead of a nipple, it's that little where you tie off the balloon.
It's
thing.
Well, I was thinking of the baby bottle.
Oh, that's another one you can do. There's a lot of fun tricks because all you need to like read the idea of boob is like mass, and that. And funny enough, a water balloon kind of is the same as that. It's a sack of fluid. So yeah, now we've talked past the time lapse portion just to say sack of fluid. So we'll wrap this up. Go watch the short on TN Comedy, and yeah, subscribe to him, subscribe to us, and we will keep making cool stuff.
Bye!